All right, man, back to the SEC. Arkansas at number 8, Texas A&M. KenPom projecting this one A&M -8. You are going back to the fade, the Aggies train.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what happens when you have stats that point to this type of overperformance, long-term overperformance. It's tough. It is definitely a interesting spot to go ahead and just, trust the data, because time and time again, it points to teams that are maybe doing really well, that look really good, and says, maybe fade them. And again, like we have Texas A&M outside the top 30 teams, which is pretty drastic compared to the way that they look to most of the market. So in that sense, yeah, they are one of the luckiest teams in the nation, currently expected to be 12-12 instead of 19-5, a 27.35 record look. And look, long term, I have seen it again and again. This stuff is right more often than it is wrong. So I'll ride it to the bottom. I'll go down with the ship. Look, I don't think that what we've seen out of the defense for Arkansas is all that great, but in terms of what I see from Texas A&M's defense, they've just absolutely been clobbering everybody at the rim. They look like that no one can score on them. And in SEC play alone, Shot Quality expecting a near 10% differential between how good they are and how good they're expected to be. So that is a good buy point on anyone coming in against them. Arkansas, Coach Cal, I think has actually done a pretty good job, and they're kind of cold. They're shooting 4% colder than expected from three, 10% colder than expected from mid-range in the conference. But their defense has been great. So you want to talk about two teams that have maybe been showing who they are a little different than the shot quality. The defense for Arkansas expected to be worse. The offense of Texas A&M expected to be worse. But then on the other side of the ball, I think is where Arkansas is kind of who they are, and then A&M again expected to be worse. So I'll keep going down with it. It's definitely cost me some money, but at some point it's going to turn around, and maybe there's reason to start thinking that I should be like adding more to it so that I recoup my losses. But look, the way it's worked for me this season, if there's a team or two that maybe I've dropped 7 or 8 units on, there's probably a team or 3 that I've won 5 or 6 on to balance it out. So we'll keep riding with it. I do think this is a continued sell point for anyone who believes in what shot quality is doing. The offense, in terms of just what they develop in catch and shoot threes, is abysmal. Again, it's all red. It's all red expected offense in the conference, but yet somehow everything seems to be going in. Eventually they got to have the bad game. It's got to come to a close. Someone's got to figure it out, and we'll be there cashing the bet when they struggle.
If this line opens around 8, I think on the surface I would lean towards the Hogs.
I think it could open 9.5. I think it could open 8.5, 9.5. That's very realistic. We're getting a lot of love for home teams right now.
Yeah. Arkansas having the motivation right on the bubble, along with a couple other teams that we talked about so far. So that's big for the Hogs. Turnover issues also haven't been an issue for them, even without Boogie Flan, which is pretty big against Texas A&M's ball pressure. We saw that in the second half against Georgia, where the Georgia Bulldogs, didn't score for 13 plus minutes or 12 plus minutes. Didn't hit a field goal, I should say, in the second half for 12 plus minutes. That was wild, but we'll touch on Georgia here in a bit. So Arkansas's last 4 games, 3 of 4 wins, shooting just under 42% from deep and allowing a 31% three-point clip. I just wonder, and you could argue A&M shot selection isn't great, so maybe that three-point percentage allowed continues, but can they continue to hot shooting with a defense that is, to me, the most physical in the SEC? The defenses they've faced of late aren't of that ilk.
Yeah.
So Avicic has been playing very well, and they've been playing very well because John L. Davis is seemingly finally healthier. Maybe he was just shooting poorly. Maybe it was just a mental thing at the beginning of the season, but seems to be a bit of both at this point. Arkansas, an interesting team if they get into the tournament. Can they make a run? Depends on whether you trust Cal or not. I agree. He's been, from a coaching standpoint, I'm a fan of late, and I think the team
a little better, yeah.
Yeah, benefited in a sense from the Flan injury, but I worry about A&M's physicality because I feel like that isn't, and it can't be baked in to shot quality. Shot
No.
selection isn't great, but they are so good at generating those second chance opportunities.
Right. Well, it is baked in the sense of how many possessions they're expected to get and their rebound rates and all that stuff, because we do weigh um, offensive rebound chances and second chance points against expectations. So that, like, your second chance points is a factor of your rebound percent. Like you can't, your expected second chance point is a factor of your rebound percentage, and then the expected shot percentage of the second shot. Um, Thankfully, we calculate all that stuff very well, and I'm not I don't have to deal with it. I just use the numbers. But no, I think, look, you're right. It's an interesting spot. I think that in terms of how you're approaching this, if Coach Cal's figuring it out, I think that's what you have to kind of give some credit towards. I think that right now in college basketball, with the landscape that we have for transfers and coaching changes, it's it's almost naive to demand success in the first 4 months, let alone first year. Like, I think what's going to happen with Coach Cal next year, I would expect another big step up. We've seen it almost everywhere. It is hard to win in your first year. It is hard to get the guys you want on your team in transfer portal your first year, because you're also moving your staff, moving your life as a coach. Like, there's so much that goes on. So and then you got to restart building culture, building connections, understanding how things work. Programs have like little things here and there, travel things, like the way the players are, the way the environments are at the school. Like, I'm more inclined to believe that the early season performance from Coach Cal is likely going to be seen as a discount in the next month and a half.
If you're betting on Arkansas, you're betting on them to be able to score in transition
Yep.
for a full 40 minutes, because that's what Georgia couldn't do in the second half, because their offense was stagnant, non-existent for much of it. And then they were playing in the half court because of it, because A&M was scoring and then pressuring the ball. And Georgia had about 20 seconds with their inept offense to score, which was not going to happen.